We have multiple volcanic systems in the Reykjanes Peninsula of Iceland. They are part of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which itself is part of the global oceanic ridges. They are among the most gentle eruptions. Millions of them have happened. Hundreds of them happen every week and every month. We never notice them because they are under the 5 kilometers of water. We are lucky in Iceland, we see them on the surface and we can study them. We have seismogram network that can pick up all the tremors from them. This is the latest one from the Grindavik area, as you can see. We have a pattern of rising of tremors. Tectonically shows that the earth is opening up gradually, but without creating a gap. Magma rises to fill that gap, glue it back practically, creating new land. The wave of this coming actually from the what we call a Reykjanes Ridge, from the ocean toward the Reykjanes Peninsula, like a wave moving inward. And this flexure of the earth crust through these fault lines actually is the one that pushes up the magma. And we have a way to see in 3 dimensions these tremors. And the bubbles you see here, these circles, are each a tremor of an earthquake with the magnitude and the depth. And you can see that we have a system of the what we call Svartsengi volcanic system and the Krýsuvík system, which is denoted here by the Kalir and Clare Forward up to now was 5 kilometers deep. It is stopped at that depth. That was the earthquakes that were just practically transferring the movement from the Svartsengi system toward the east. At the moment, we now see that there is a more shallower earthquakes from that system near the Clare Forward rising toward the shallower depth. That means that system also has reached a flexure that actually is opening up to let the magma rise. Magma rising there eventually, not immediately, will lead 2 systems be active. Svartsengi system, which has actually caused damage to the through the Reykjanes Ridge and the Reykjanes Peninsula to the town of Grindavik, is going to erupt probably this week. But the Krýsuvík system is gradually building up the pressure. It has been last time active in the medieval times, 12th century, middle of the 12th century, and created lava field. That is an important system in a way because that area is full of glacial lakes and the water level in the aquifers is relatively shallower. And we have a saturated soil. So practically, if we create phreatic eruptions, means explosive, more explosive than the gentler ones that we see in the, for example, Fagradalsfjord and other places. And these 2 systems are gradually awakening now. I have videos about this, which I put at the end of this video. You can watch them and enjoy. Millions of tons of magma are involved at the moment in Svartsengi. Svartsengi is rising up and then transferring horizontally this magma toward the fault line in the Sundunga craters and the Hagafell. So it will erupt there. And then gradually we will see that over years probably that the Krýsuvík volcanic system also will erupt. Icelandic people being the very tough and industrious people. I'm sure the whole world is watching to learn from them because so far we have seen how beautifully they have managed to cope with what happened in Grindavik, for example. And we will learn a lot from them over the coming years. And you will see that at the end of it, that something like Blue Lagoon will emerge and they will use it again for the benefit of their country and everywhere else in the world who may actually have access to such resources from within the earth. Why the volcano can't erupt? We know that the tremors are continuing in the Reykjanes Peninsula, especially around the Svartsengi Sundunga craters. We see the pattern is a loose pattern. It is not like the eruption times we saw in the Fagradalsfjord or Litli or the early eruption of the Sundunga. We see that this pattern repeats every 6 hours. We know that in that area we have cracks in the ground. This is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, having grabens, faults forming, and these faults, which are normal faults, are like a wave actually moving, flexing with something that is squeezing them. Like a toothpaste, they are being squeezed. And this squeezing of this flexure of the ground creates this pattern. It rises the ground, sinks slightly, rises, sinks. We can see through the tremors, the depth of the tremors. We can see inside the earth something is rising and pulsating at the same time. This is probably the lava opening up the fault lines as it goes and then rising slightly, getting squeezed upward. It may be related to the diurnal pattern of the sun and the moon creating every 6 hour tide on the earth. This is a mathematical model. We have to study it carefully. It's mostly beyond the geologist's knowledge. But there must be a pattern that is related to the moon and sun gravitational pull and flexure of the lithosphere creating this pattern. We are lucky that in the Reykjanes Peninsula we have an east-west direction that we can actually see this pattern forming in that area. And there is an eruption possible, but just we need enough squeeze to actually rising up the magma like the toothpaste to the surface, and then we will have eruption like what we saw in the Fagradalsfjall. This is one of the earliest stages of the Fagradalsfjall eruption. You can see that it's a tiny volcano in the world scale of it, but it was dramatic. You could see the magma forming, boiling, creating lava, and spreading to the surface. This is the mid-Atlantic ridge. This is the way all that mid-oceanic ridges around the world actually operate. I think that this volcano will erupt, but not at this stage. This is just squeezing up the magma upward. We're going again to study the depth diagram of the earthquakes at the Svartsengi, Blue Lagoon, and Grindavik. And this time, for the interesting part that the clay forward is playing in that's a part of the Krýsuvík volcanic system. Just a few days ago, the earthquakes were small. They were all at the depth of 5 kilometers. Now it seems they're rising. We have bigger earthquake, 3.3 we had, and then the earthquakes are getting shallower, rising. Up to now, what we had at the depth of 5 kilometers was the fault lines transferring the movement from the Svartsengi toward the east. And that was the reason we had earthquakes in the Krýsuvík and Clare Forward area. Now, it seems that area has opened up just enough that the magma is jumping through the cracks that are created, through the gaps, and coming up. Those smaller earthquakes are a sign of magma rising. They can decrease or they can increase by the depth. So we have two scenarios. One scenario is that the earthquake will rise, magma with them rising, and they will increase when they reach the surface. Another scenario is that they will decrease actually. We may not have bigger earthquakes anymore, and the rising of a magma will stop at some depth, forming a seal practically. And this is the situation that we are now seeing. We have to wait and see. Up to now, it was moving transferring through the transform faults toward the east. Now it seems the Krýsuvík is actually awakening. It may lead and create a pathway for the magma to rise from the depth of the 10 kilometer, which is across, toward the 5, and the 5 rising to the surface. This is a scary situation because we are the Svartsengi, Blue Lagoon, Grindavik volcanic system is now active, and the magma movement in that direction can actually increase the chances of the risk to the buildings and the structures in the vicinity of those areas, including the Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland.